in a Texas crash.
We packed more in 22 years than most people pack in 92 years.
And now police say a 13-year-old driver caused the head-on collision.
Plus, going door to find real solutions. Meet the group hoping to address Denver's growing affordable housing problems.
It's really listening to people of the issues.
And it's a historic day for CU women's basketball as the Buffs prepare to take to the hardwood for their first appearance in the big dance.
We wanted to put Colorado back on the map.
Yeah, we're excited. Go CU. We got a lot of Buffs fans here at the station. Thanks for joining us. I'm Nicole Brady.
And I'm Jessica Crawford. Lots of news taking place in the sports world as March Madness ramps up. We'll get to the latest in just a few. But first, breaking right now at 8, we're taking a live look at the White House, where this morning President Biden is holding a call with Chinese President Xi from the White House Situation Room. President Biden telling his Chinese counterpart not to assist Russia in its invasion in any way or risk sanctions amid the ongoing conflict in Ukraine.
Today's conversation comes after overnight Russia fired 6 missiles on the western city of Lviv. The city is near the Polish border and has been relatively untouched by Russian attacks until now. Ukraine's military says of the 6 missiles fired, it intercepted 2. Lviv has become the main gathering place for displaced Ukrainians. An estimated 200,000 people who have fled their homes have moved into that city, hoping to eventually make their way to the border. U.S. officials say Ukraine's military resistance is stalling Russian troops from advancing on the ground. Russian troops have not made any progress toward the capital of Kyiv since last Friday. Now the Kremlin is relying on longer-range missile systems to do more damage across the country. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he agrees with President Biden that Russia is committing war crimes by intentionally targeting civilians. He worries Moscow might be setting the stage to use chemical weapons and that they will falsely blame Ukraine to justify the escalating attacks.
And this morning, we're hearing from a Colorado man and his Ukrainian wife who are staying in Lviv. Joe and Dasha Ramers have been helping others with food, transportation, and housing. They spoke with CNN last night. Dasha's parents and grandmother are in Mariupol, an area that has been heavily targeted by Russians. Well, this week, Russians bombed a theater there, being used as a shelter for hundreds. CNN that couple spoke with Dasha's dad.
So we know that they're fine the moment we talk to them, and then after that we wait until we hear from them again. But when we talked to him yesterday, he said it was a miracle that God was protecting them, but it's a miracle that they're all still alive.
Dasha's family is staying in a church in Mariupol where they are caring for some of the elderly who couldn't leave. Dasha says she's proud to be Ukrainian and proud of everyone fighting for the country.
Back here in Colorado, we're taking a live look outside from our Mile High camera. You can see the sun out, and it's going to do a little more melting this weekend as we see a more warm weather, Lisa.
It looks a lot different than what it did yesterday there, the skyline. We've got clear skies across the state, a really pretty start to our Friday. And yeah, some warm weather here, a little nice break in between these storms. Your wake up forecast this morning, we're still in the 20s. It's pretty chilly out there, but we're going to get into the low 30s, just above freezing by 10 o'clock, low 40s by lunch, and then we'll hit highs closer to 50 between about 5 and 6 o'clock. Denver right around 50, mid to upper 50s down near Pueblo and La Junta, and we're looking at some 30s to low 40s in the Central Mountains, but dry conditions statewide today. Your mountain forecast does change, and that's when we're going to see really some of the first of the snow late day Sunday. So in the mountains Saturday, some sunshine. Sunday, snow develops that afternoon and then moves in across the plains. We'll take a closer look at our Monday storm coming up here, Colette, in just a few minutes.
Yeah, and Lisa, there's a new crash there on northbound 25, a little bit south of the main heart of Denver right there, but you can see that slowdown right there. It is creating some stop and go traffic over here in the shoulder. That's where the actual crash is. It's a little bit too dirty of a camera lens to fully make out what is exactly happening there, but let me show you on the map where that is. So that crash right here, the right lane is blocked, 25 northbound near Alameda Ave. Then there was a crash that I've been telling you about all this morning. Not a crash necessarily, but a disabled semi truck. Take a look what Air Tracker 7 got earlier this morning. It was still dark, you can tell, but that truck actually too full of beer, so it concaved in on itself. That's going to cause a full closure for around 4 hours after 9 of 76 eastbound, according to Arvada police. Now heading back out to the map, there are a couple more accidents I want to tell you about. One US 6 eastbound at Heritage Road. There's a crash there. You can avoid that. Those drive times, though, of 25 southbound from Colfax to C470 at around 20 minutes, northbound at around 17 minutes. So that crash not really creeping into our drive times just yet on northbound 25. Then if you head a little bit north, westbound 270 from I-70 to 25 at 10 minutes, eastbound 15. Not too terrible. We are starting to see some of those reds in our drive times there. And to and from the airport, eastbound to the airport, 26 minutes.
All right, Colette, thanks. Well, new this morning, we have learned a 13-year-old was driving the truck that killed a Westminster College student and his classmates in Texas.
In Jackson, Zinn, whose young life was cut short, leaves behind a big legacy. Denver 7's Veronica Acosta is hearing from one of the people who knew him best, his pastor.
He was the person that made you feel better if you were around him. One of the many ways Jackson Zinn's pastor described him. A young man who he said was fun, loved interacting with those around him, and of course loved his mom, his dad, and his sisters.
He was bigger than life. I mean, he was just a loving, compassionate, driven, competitive, wonderful young man. You'll be hard-pressed to find anything about him that isn't positive.
The lead pastor at Grace Church says Jackson's parents called him about Jackson's death Tuesday at 3 in the morning. He said he stayed on that phone call with them, listening, crying, and praying together. They talked about his love for golf and the bond that built between him and his dad. And despite being broken about Jackson's death, Long said the family took the time to reminisce about their son and brother. Now he said it's time for his ministry to step up to support Jackson's family as they navigate what comes next. He said the real challenge in loving people comes after the memorial. And that memorial service, it is being planned for Jackson at Grace Church in Arvada. That'll be held this weekend. In studio, I'm Veronica Acosta, Denver 7.
Thank you, Veronica. A hearing today will bring Boulder County leaders in court with the group suing the county over how they chose the Marshall Fire cleanup contractor. The group that sued is no longer standing in the way of the county signing a contract with the Louisiana-based company. However, it still wants more information about the steps leaders took to decide on that particular company. A community group that protested the lawsuit over the weekend is also filing another motion in the case, going on record to say they want a contract executed soon so the debris removal can finally begin. Time is running out for Marshall Fire victims to apply for disaster assistance. Boulder County has set a March 31st deadline to apply. This is for people whose homes were damaged or destroyed, as well as people who were displaced because of ash or smoke contamination. The county will distribute financial aid by appointment through April 22nd. You can find a link to apply on Boulder County's website.
Homeless advocates braved the cold and snow Thursday with a focus on finding real solutions to help underserved communities across the metro. Denver 7's Micah Smith joined them as they went door to door in Denver's 5 Points neighborhood.
When the snow is falling and the temperature drops, a lot of community members think about our unhoused neighbors and how to connect them with resources. A new initiative called the Basic Project is using a personal approach to get to know people in need, the policies that have worked for them, and the policies that have failed them. Many organizations throughout Denver offer a warm meal and shelter daily. The Community Outreach Service Center is one of them.
Talking to people, get to know our neighbors.
But through its new initiative called the Basic Project, the center hopes to offer even more.
Bridging accountable, safe, inclusive communities. It's really listening to people of the issues.
On this cold and snowy day, the Basic Project coordinator Gerald Hamill and peer navigator Raymond Johnson are doing just that. Hamill says he's talked to researchers all over the country about best practices for addressing the needs of underserved communities. And the answer is simple.
It's getting out, listening to people, not coming with an agenda.
Hamill says policies are often created in a bubble without input from those most impacted.
I was once considered an invisible person. We are your neighbors.
Raymond Johnson hasn't lived on the streets, but he spent 26 years in prison and was recently released.
Working in prison is different.
He says outreach helped him transition into his new life. And now Johnson's hoping to be a liaison between those who also feel invisible and those creating policies.
It do start out by going to meet your neighbor, finding out who they are.
There's plenty of housing.
Hamill says a lot of resources are offered and immediately rejected.
There's no relationship and I can't trust.
Hamill says the BASIC project plans to build that trust by getting to know those who live nearby, whether over a free hot meal like this one at Agape Christian Church, or by simply stopping to ask about their needs. After eating that hot meal inside of the church, the BASIC project members were all encouraged to take a plate to someone in need in the community as a way to start the conversation about what the community needs to do to support its most vulnerable members. Reporting in 5 Points, Micah Smith, Denver 7.
Well, prices for nearly everything are going up across the country, but experts are now predicting when inflation will peak here in Colorado.
Plus, breaking hearts and brackets, the CSU Rams are out of March Madness, but they're holding their heads high and now planning for next year.